Welcome to this edition of the Million Dollar Mastermind podcast. This is where we pick the brains of high achievers from all walks of life and get their hard-earned, real-world insights on winning. I'm your host, Larry Weidel. It's interesting that you see there are, we have had some CEOs that seemed to be in their monster stage when they would come down to run the company. You know, we went through a period of time with our company out of Atlanta where they would send down one incredibly strange CEO after another down from New York. And, we did get, most of them were pretty decent, but we did have one that would, fire people on the elevator if they didn't basically bow down, who is that guy? Fire him, get off the elevator, go back there. Who is that guy on the elevator? Go in there, fire him, Guy'd been with the company 35 years,
Gosh.
Things like that, or, come in and, we had a kitchen outside of his office and bring in, he'd have breakfast in the office. The secretary would bring in, or assistant would bring in his cereal. And if it wasn't the right temperature, he'd throw the milk and cornflake up against the wall, and just a real 5-year-old.
Right.
But you don't have many of those. What do you find that most of the people at the top have realized you got to get things done with people.
Yes.
And the better you treat them, it's easier for them to go the extra mile. Putting up with you, because none of us are going to be that easy to work with.
Absolutely.
Especially if you're in a leadership situation, and one thing that people need to know when, especially if they're being coached, it's just like, don't expect yourself to be perfect. And emotionally, and it's like, there's going to be times where you're just going to be hard to live with, but, apologize for it as much as you can, or when you can. Treat people as good as you can, but don't overdo it when you are getting down on yourself because you really screwed up,
Right.
Because everybody's going to really screw up, and then you just really make it right, one way or the other. And then if the people can't get over that and accept the apology or whatever, then that's their issue. That's not your issue.
Yes.
And
Well said.
That even, say in the Bible, I think it says, live at peace with other men and women as much as it's in your power, and so past a certain point, don't get over yourself, because there's a lot of pressure and a lot of fireballs that fall out of the sky on the head of whoever's in charge.
Yes.
And what creates the most stress is you don't have time. It's just like, bam, you're in the middle of this thing, stressful situation. And that's when everything unravels. They unravel at the worst possible time. Your house is going to burn down the day after you lapse the fire insurance,
Right. Yeah. For sure.
And the leader's got to somehow cover all of that and make it come out right. And so you're not going to be perfect, but you can solve it and keep on going. That's the main thing.
Yes.
If you're treating people right, because they'll give you the latitude. And so what kind of things what do you think you've had? So let's talk about some of the turnarounds you've had here recently, and how and why you think you made a difference. What do you bring to the table? Where you could say that was very satisfying. It's like, when you're talking to yourself, you're not going in front of the company and prayed and say, thank goodness you guys are smart enough to bring me in here, because you were going nowhere. And then when I showed up, everything you can't do that. But when you get off by yourself, again, you're giving all the credit to them. But when you get by yourself, you take satisfaction when you do a good job and you are making a difference. Where do you think you make a difference?
I think, based on what I shared about my leadership learning experiences, I made the most difference, at least in the past 2 years, really with people, right? That's a great book. I'm sure you know the book, Who Not How, by Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy. And it's just literally what you said. Like, the top leaders recognize that they need people to accomplish goals, right? They need to treat their people right. So I've been on a path to really make sure, just a saying, right? Like in business, that your clients always come first, client obsession, right? That's cool. But I believe in employee obsession. Yeah. I believe when you take care of your team members first, they'll take care of your clients.
Yeah.
So I've been on that mission to really make sure that I'm a good leader. I'm a good person. I'm setting the right example. I'm being a good role model, and I'm leading from the front, and I'm saying sorry to people when I make mistakes, right? Like I'm doing my best to do that. And so I think for me, that's a big thing that I brought to the table, the leadership.
And how has that worked out when you come into a situation and evaluate a situation and you're called in to help turn them around and get going? How do you go about getting to that point where you can make this kind of contribution?
Yeah, great question. So a lot of my clients these days, they hire me for sales management consulting. Yeah. Literally, they say, Joel, I've got a problem. My sales team is converting at less than 10% conversion rates. Our sharp rates are horrible. Can you come in and take a look? So I come in, and the first thing I do is I don't just question the salespeople, but I figure out what is going on at the leadership level.
Yeah.
What are the leaders not doing? And I guarantee you, the issues are always at the leadership management.
Wow. And so then what do you do?
Well, then I literally say, well, here's my training program for leadership, for sales management.
Yeah.
Let's go through it. Let's jump on once a week and let me coach you through. And then the results improve, right? Just from that.
But with the top people, but you do it with the top people. Yeah.
I do it. Yeah. So so here's the mistake when I first did sales consulting. When I first did sales consulting, I would only go and train the salespeople.
Right.
Then I realized this isn't working, because as much as I could make these salespeople good, they had so many obstacles at a top level that held them back. So I realized I actually have to work with both parties.
Yeah.
Both the people, but also the management.
And this is why I recommend people who really want to get an education go and find all of the old episodes of Caesar the Dog Whisperer and watch those things, because you find out he can train the dog, no problem. The vicious, this, that, and the other, but he's always saying it's the owners that are the problem.
Amazing. Wow. Amazing.
It's like when I go see my sister and her family, and they have the dog inside the house and acting like a lunatic. And I said, yeah, but you guys always watch Caesar. What's the deal? What I said, all you got to do is this, that, and the other. Well, we don't want to do that, and this. It's like, yeah, you let the dog run. It's one thing to watch the program, but because he established that the dogs want discipline. Right. They want order. They, and in the absence of that, they're going to act out to see if they can make you stand up and take charge of the situation. If not, they'll take charge. Right. Right. And I always love these things on the episodes where you have, like in Central Park, you got like someone like worth hundreds of millions of dollars, like Jerry Seinfeld.
Yes.
Taking his total out of control dogs out through Central Park, and he's got to walk them, a couple times a day.
Yeah.
Or have them walk, but usually, it's amazing how much they walk them themselves. But when they go back into their sanctuary, their $20, $30, $40 million house in the Upper East Side, that they're going into a kingdom ruled by two or three out of control dogs.
Right. Yeah. That's funny.
All you got to do is assert yourself, and it's you're not being bad to your team. Install some order and things like that, and you want to do it in a way where they understand. And what was one of the most difficult cases you've had so far to bring people through, would you say?
I think the toughest moments are the moments where, like you said, the commission salespeople, they really want to make money and they want to win, and their offer, their product, right, has so much potential and it's a great product. But then for me, it was just having a leader that had a big ego, like inflated ego that wouldn't want to listen, that wouldn't want to change.
Right.
And like I could literally see all the potential being like literally burnt, dissipating into the air because of one person's ego.
Right.
And to me, those are always the toughest because they're not gonna, I mean, I can lead a horse to water, but I can't make the horse drink water, right?
Yeah.
I can point these things out to the leader as a peer, but it's up to him or her whether they want to implement what we teach them. Yeah. And I think those are always the toughest moments where I can't get through to a fellow leader, basically.
For those of you who are sick and tired of fooling around and are dead serious about wanting to move up fast, I've got something especially for you. I've combined the best insights from over 40 years in business and making $70 million in income and compressed them into a free webinar. That's right, it's a free resource. If you want to find out exactly what the concepts are that I use in coaching $1 million earners, register now at weidelonwinning.com. You'll discover the 5-part framework used by so many to reach their financial, personal, and professional goals. You can find that link in this episode's show notes.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that's rewarding about getting bigger and bigger and bigger is that you can say no to bigger and bigger people. Like, I don't care how much business you bring, this, that, the other. It's not a good situation for me. I don't, I don't think that you and I would mesh. Your style obviously works, right? But, I don't want to be the, creating problems and just back away, and because you want to get a situation where you can be successful. And I'm sure you analyze things in that you've learned to analyze things that way. How long, what the contracts that you have with people, how long do they usually run?
Yeah. So I always start engagements at 3 months, but because that gives me time to analyze, put in plans in place, do coaching, have my team come in. And then we go month to month from there. There are clients who I've known for like years before I worked with them. I give them month to month contracts. But just like you said, this week, we literally gave out, multiple, it was, almost $50,000 of refunds to clients that we just didn't want to work with.
Yeah.
They were just not wanting, like we're just not a good fit. Right. Yeah. So it's like at the end of it, say, you know what? I've gave you some things for free. You can keep the scripts, keep the templates, but here's a full refund.
Yeah. That's a really good feeling, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, it's scary, but it's also a good feeling, right? It's like,
Well, it's a part of your progression. And the thing is you might as well let them have it because they're never going to pay any attention to it anyway. Even if you were there, right? And there's some people that won't get it, even if you're in front of them screaming the answer in their face. They go like, I don't know, I just don't get it. It's like, but there's no reason. We're not always, and sometimes it's our fault that we're just not communicating with them.
Yes.
And so we don't need to be on the high horse to where they're not good enough for us or whatever. It's just like, I just don't think I'm your guy,
Yeah.
So, what would you, I think I'm going to have to force myself to wrap this up. I think we could go on and on for quite a while. What would you say? How did Ulysses broaden your scope right off the bat and things that you found yourself doing? Because not everybody's going to find Ulysses, but you can start doing. So, the ideas are out there for people to use. So what are some of the ideas he used with you right off the bat to get you known more?
Yeah. So I think the first thing is like being consistent, posting content online. Yeah. It's not expensive. You don't have to get a fancy camera. You could do it yourself, right? You don't have I've been posting content now for exactly a year. Yeah. And to be fair, it's not like my followers have skyrocketed. I've only gained probably 3,000-4,000 followers in the past 12 months. Yeah. But it's the habit and the consistency of doing the same thing over and over again that I'm actually looking for, right? So we post a video every single day. And I think that's one of the best ways is just get your organic content up. So when people search for you, they don't see an empty Instagram. They see that you have hundreds of videos about your topic, right? So that's the first thing I would do if you don't have access or you don't want to, hire like a Ulysses. And the second thing I would do, I highly encourage is people to actually go to in-person events.
Yeah.
Right. In-person events, invest money in that. It could be free, it could be paid, but go and actually network with people. I still believe, like, I'm a part of a lot of masterminds, Larry. Well, when I say a lot, I mean 4. But the true value in masterminds is actually, for me, the people, the networks, right? I believe, that your net worth is your net worth.
Yeah.
I believe that the right networks will open the right doors.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like being able to get out of my comfort zone and being able to talk to people. So anyone that's listening or watching, it's just about being brave or taking the first step to go to an event and then actually talking and adding value to people and trying to see whether you can solve them any problems, right? Maybe without expecting anything in return in the beginning.
Sure. And what we've seen over the last decades here is the growth of local entrepreneur groups and networking groups, and where business leaders in a community get together, meet, lunch, talk over things, have a speaker, but just interact like that. But, you don't have to be flying all over the country to these things, to get in front of the biggest leaders in the world. You can start locally. It's just start where you are, start where you can, and start giving you a bigger exposure. And how did this change your outlook when you started doing this? Did you see how it changed you and your thinking?
You mean networking?
No, with you started dealing with Ulysses. He put some ideas in there. It caused you to do things that maybe I'm sure you weren't doing, but maybe you didn't know if it would be worth the effort or whatever. And you're saying, but then from the process, light bulbs go on in your head.
Yes.
How did that work?
Yeah, I think, with Ulysses, because it's PR and press releases, public relations, but it's more about, I think, controlling the narrative, right, of what the world sees about you or your company. And I think that's a very powerful thing to be able to do or control. Right. And so, what I've learned is basically whoever controls the narrative will always win, right? It's like in history, the winners and losers of battle, but whoever writes history is always the winners that writes history, right? In the history books and everything. So I think for me, it's kind of one of those things where it's a double-edged sword. You can use it for good. You can also use it for bad, right? Like, for example, I could come on and just embellish and lie about everything I've done.
Right.
Sure. Will that get me, bigger, faster? Yeah. Sure, I suppose. But then eventually you're going to get found out. That's a problem.
Right.
So for me, it's just carefully balancing how I use PR, if that makes sense.
Right.
And making sure it's like, again, integrity.
It's legitimate.
Yep. Ethical.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. And the thing I would tell you about your followers, all of these things, you really need to hold your judgment until the 3rd or 4th year, because it's kind of like, it's like when we went to, because of the regulations, we weren't able to pull this off. We went over to the UK to build a marketing organization and financial services in 2003.
Okay.
And when I went over there, I knew it was going to be brutal. But what I said to myself was, like, if it takes a whole year of me beating my head against the wall to get just 3 people, in a part-time management, just 3 decent people that if I call a meeting, they'll be there and they're know enough to where they can explain things to other people. If I keep that same program going, 2nd year, I will have 9, and then the 3rd year I'll have, 27. And then after before long, I'm around 180 to 100 wide on my management team because you have to give time for your efforts to compound and multiply. So I think if you stay on your track,
yes,
we're switching roles, but if I would say to you, the way to look at those numbers is like, it's fantastic because I did get that many, but we're laying the foundation for thousands where we're getting hundreds now and tens of thousands after that, So
I appreciate that, Larry. Thank you.
Yeah. The whole idea is to get, in fact, I did a talk on this on Monday. It's like how to recruit tens of thousands of people for decades. And that's what I've done in my business. It's like,
that's amazing.
You have to have a system and you have to, it has to be simple and you have to stay with it. And that's what I'm hearing from you that you got going. So I would say stay on track, man.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Larry.
And last words here that you want, you have a last word you want to pass on to the people who've been listening?
I always say this when I wrap things up, and I'm a big proponent of, the whole gain and mindset, which is like winning, right? So I would say for anyone listening right now, to take a look every night before you go to bed at what you've learned today. What have you gained? Yeah. What have you won, right? And then just write it down, and that will really serve you every single day. Yeah.
The lessons you learn, it's like not everything works for everybody, but we're in the process of finding out what works for us.
Yes.
And that's really gold once you find it, because you can use it forever to create profit for yourself and the people around you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Larry.
Talking with you. Let's stay in touch.
All right. Thank you, Larry. Take care now. Have a good day.
Okay. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Million Dollar Mastermind. If you felt there were any valuable takeaways from this episode, please take a minute and leave us a 5-star review. Your feedback is important and really helps us get the word out to a wider audience. Remember, we have a valuable webinar that is absolutely free. Register for it right now at weidelonwinning.com. Thanks for listening.